Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where today you join me on top of a much busier than normal parking structure in Ann Arbor, Michigan with the highly anticipated 2026 7th generation Subaru Outback. This one is a Touring XT, which means it is turbocharged. Under the hood, the 2.4 liter FA24 boxer engine with 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. But that's a carryover from the 6th generation. This is a big deal for a couple of reasons. For one, they've drastically restyled it. It is now leaning more towards the SUV spectrum of things, but it's also a bit boxier, a bit larger than the outgoing 6th gen. And honestly, I feel like generations 4 through 6 all kind of look the same. So this is kind of our biggest departure since 2009. And boy, does it make a statement, especially today in this touring trim in deep emerald green with a Java interior. So today we're going to try and get out of here before all of these parking spots fill up, but we're going to show you a bit of what this is like to live with. Now again, for the third time, it's a touring, it's about 50 grand. We have the 2.4, we have a CVT, and of course this has symmetrical all-wheel drive. But I want to see if this still has the Outback formula, if this still behaves like a wagon, or if they've completely lost the plot and just made this an SUV, which honestly, with how big this is, with it having 8.7 inches of ground clearance, I think the SUV thing is kind of where we're going. But somehow this massive thing, which does actually look a lot bigger in pictures than it does in person, is under 4,000 pounds by just a bit. It's like 3,900 and some change. But I'm excited to show you what this is like. And there's one big thing inside that they've changed, which was another reason that this was highly anticipated, that I'm excited to show you as well. But before we get into all of that, why don't we poke around this and show you what it looks like inside and out. We'll start in the back. There goes the clock tower. It's 11:30, so it won't be too obnoxious of one. But here we are in the back. We have this little magnet guy here, which clips on there for some extra privacy here in the back. And then we have this little dealer accessory mat. And then we have the bottom of the trunk. And then we have a tray with tools in it. So after your 5 layers of lifting things up, you can see that we do indeed have a compact spare deep under the floor. And love to see this, especially considering that it is, of course, all-wheel drive because it's a Subaru. But, you know, even if you're taking your limited trim, or sorry, not limited, your touring trim on the trail, you at least have some backup. Now, there are a number of little Easter eggs on this, which I've been noticing throughout the week. You can see how many dogs you can fit in the back. You can see one, I guess only one dog, but maybe 2. If you come over here, it tells you that you can actually put 2 dogs nose to nose if you have the second row of seats folded down, but only 1 dog if you have the second row of seats folded up. So I think that's pretty funny. And then there's also one under the spoiler, which has many things on it. You can see that one's got all of the stuff you can put on top of a Subaru Outback. You can see a canoe. Is that a shark? A shark, a tent. Don't know what that is. A bicycle, a Christmas tree. Don't know what that is. Don't know what that is. But many possibilities, I think, is kind of what they're trying to get across here. And there is quite a bit of room in this. I mean, obviously, besides just looking at the spare tire, you've just got a ton of it. It's like a cargo van when you have the seats folded down back here. Pretty wide opening. I don't really think you'd have trouble fitting anything in this. And then if you run out of room in the back, obviously you have the roof, which has these roof rails on it. And this one has just a little baby sunroof back here. No pano roof, which is interesting. I suspect that is because they want you to take advantage of these mounting points and actually put stuff on the roof of this Subaru Outback. So why don't we check out the back seat? Your first look at this Java interior, which since this is the touring trim, this is actual legit Nappa leather. No StarTex in this $49,000 or $50,000 Subaru Outback. Pretty quiet in this cabin, but again, accentuation on bigness here in this car. There's just a ton of room here in the back seat. You do feel like you kind of sit down further in this. The door panels do come up pretty high. Materials back here are nice. You've got that Java brown on the door panels, a squishy material for your elbows, some like brushed trim by the window switches. Little fold-down armrest with some cup holders. You've got 2-stage outboard heated rear seats, USB-C and USB-A port, and you have climate vents. The only somewhat of a bummer back here is that we don't have like the traditional wagon B-pillar vents. So that's kind of sad and takes away from the wagon-ness of it. But we have 3 seat back pockets in each seat. You can see 3 little compartments there. But the room back here, 5'11", sat behind myself, is just fantastic. The headliner is made out of a material that I've never seen. It kind of looks like carbon fiber. Obviously it isn't, but it's kind of like a cheap molded plastic thing that I think they maybe could have done a little bit of a better job with, but maybe that has something to do with acoustics in here. I'm not really too sure. But blended materials is good. I love this color. Before we jump up front and show you the best thing that they did for the 26 model year, let's pop under the hood and show you this FA24, which is actually the same engine you get in the current generation WRX. So this is a serious performance engine. No hood struts for 50 grand. Kind of disappointing there. But anyway, you can see that top mount intercooler, 260 horsepower, 277 pound-feet of torque. And I just wish Subaru would take a risk and attach this to something that isn't a CVT. I mean, how cool would this be if it had an 8-speed automatic or something, or even a manual transmission option? I know that nobody would buy that, and I don't think they've had a manual option since 4th gen, but still, we can all dream, I suppose, in our wagon green over brown spec. But this is the engine choice. Now, if you don't get one of the top 3 trims, the Wilderness, the Limited XT, or the Touring XT like we have, there is a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter available, which has like 100 less horsepower. So I'd probably go for this because you kind of need it. For 4,000 pounds, I don't think I'd want to have under 200 horsepower. That would be a bit sluggish, especially with the CVT. But there is just a ton of room in this engine bay. You can see the engine sits pretty low down. And then I like the way this hood comes up as well, like the top of the grille going with it looks pretty nice. I think design-wise, as a whole, it's pretty cool, and it looks, I don't know if retro is the right word, but I like how it's kind of squared off on the side. It's still recognizable as a Subaru Outback, but they've done more with it, and they've kind of just brought it up to make it look a bit more unique. I mean, the older ones, they kind of just looked like a jelly bean, and they seemed a bit confused because they kind of didn't look like wagons, but they were. This one looks a bit more like a wagon, but it's bigger, so I don't know, still a bit of a dilemma. I think the most overly designed part of this, though, is the cladding. There's just so much design in these. They go up and then around. They have the little vent. They have whatever this is, which looks like it pops out, maybe to place an accessory or something if you're putting a tent on top. Who knows? But anyway, 8.7 inches of ground clearance on this. Today we are riding on a Bridgestone Acopia all-season tire. Obviously, this is a squared setup, and it's a 225/55 R19, the same tire size that was on the Mazda CX-5 that we're driving this week. So why don't we jump in this and see if it is still the ideal daily for an environment like this that is recovering from winter and still has crappy roads, and just see how it does. Doors feel pretty nice, actually. Got nice weight to them, and it has regular door handles, which I always appreciate. Front door panels look the same as the backs. With this Touring, we get a Harman Kardon sound system, which of course we will be testing out for you today. Driver's seat has a leg extender or crumb collector, living up to its name there. Lots of gross stuff, so we're going to leave that all the way shut. Passenger seat doesn't get one, but I do like the attention to detail here on driver's seat. We've got lumbar adjust as well. Let's jump in and we'll start this up. Pay attention, headphone users, to see how quiet this is. Decently quiet. I would give it like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. Also, have to mention this excellent wagon that we're parked across from right now. Oh man, so cool. All right, let's fire this up. And as the little graphic of the sun rising over the mountains emerges onto the screen, you can see the biggest and best change for the 7th gen Outback, and that is a completely new infotainment system. Subaru has been desperately needing this for so long. And how about this? They've actually added physical controls for the 2026 model year. We now have a completely separate climate control panel, the heated seat buttons, the cooled seat buttons, that's all physical. We have a dimmer switch down here on the left. We still have our volume knob. I know the older ones had that, but look, it's still here. But most importantly, this infotainment is now usable. You can actually go through the menus. It reacts pretty quickly. I mean, look at the swipe. Yes, this is a usable 2026 appropriate infotainment system. We love to see it. The Topher has been using it mainly to turn off driver assist things, which they make pretty easy. You can see you have all these menus here to turn off certain things. Looks like a lot of it is off. Except our different sorts of cruise control and whatever else, camera settings, whatever, all that stuff, we'll leave that on. Now, we actually still have a TomTom in-house navigation, which does seem to work fine. I've had no problems with this lagging or taking forever to pull up like it does. But I've just been running CarPlay, which you can have in a minimized view like this if you'd like quick access to all of your other things over here on the left. But I like running it in full screen because it does actually take up the full screen, and it just looks good. So big fan of this so far. I really have no complaints. I mean, this is really all you need, right? You need a screen that's, I mean, it could probably be a little bit smaller. This is a pretty big screen, but you just need a screen to do the basic things. You need your own climate control panel down here. You need a volume knob, all of the buttons on the steering wheel, which I think the steering wheel is just a straight carryover, but that's fine. All these physical buttons here. You've got heated steering wheel button there, dimmer. I mean, the interior of this just has everything you need. You even have a little storage cubby over here, like a Toyota Grand Highlander. So that's pretty neat. Other places to put things, wireless charger right here. I don't know if this, no, that doesn't move at all. Okay, so just a wireless charger, 2 cup holders, and then a super deep center console armrest solution there that fits my hat with no problem. So I think as far as packaging, styling, ease of use here with all these controls, look at this hazard switch right in the middle. I seriously think that they've nailed it with this new redesign of the Outback. Even get a camera mirror here on this Touring, place to put your sunglasses. You've got physical controls for your sunroof, all that stuff. Oh man, how refreshing is it to get in a newly revised 2026 vehicle that has buttons? It just tickles me. Okay, well, I think that's probably good. Why don't we get this out on the road and we'll show you what it's like to live with. I have to stop at the grocery store today on my way home and pick up some things for the week. So we'll see what this is like as a grocery getter, but also a city commuter and a highway commuter. And then at the end, we'll show you what it's like off the line and stuff. We'll see what the 260 horsepower can do and all of that stuff. Now, camera quality is pretty good. You can see 360 camera there, shows you how you are between the lines. Parking brake does not automatically disengage, so you have to do that. Parking sensors, just a super traditional mechanical shifter here. No problem with that. Only thing I don't like is that you don't get a leather shift boot. I think that would spruce this up just a bit more. There's a previous gen Outback. You see what I mean? It just kind of, it's just boring to look at. Like I'm falling asleep looking at that. This has a bit more. Ooh, Lexus LX coming in hot. We are literally leaving before every single spot in this structure is full. I was scared pulling in here today because it said there were only 18 total spots available, but we got lucky and had that little section up there to ourselves. Anyway, though, the biggest thing I was concerned about with this is, does it feel massive when you're actually driving it, when you're actually maneuvering it? And the answer to that is no. You've got pretty light steering here. And the turning radius is tight enough where you can kind of squeeze yourself around. I mean, this doesn't feel any bigger than like a Toyota Crown Signia or something. It feels pretty comparable to that. Or just any SUV, you know, like a Chevy Blazer or a, what else? Nissan Pathfinder, Honda Pilot. Now, obviously, the Subaru Outback has gotten quite a bit bigger since its initial introduction in the 1990s, when it was literally just a lifted version of the Subaru Legacy. This new generation kind of abandons that DNA because the Subaru Legacy went out of production. So there's now no car for this to be based on. So the Outback is now its own thing, which philosophically, obviously, does feel a bit wrong. Squealing these Bridgestones there. But this is now just a completely different thing. You know, it's no longer just a lifted version of the Subaru Legacy. Get this maneuvering around here. If you want to deploy your cameras, they are a physical button below the shifter. You'll love to see it. The quality here is good. I think these will stay up. Yeah, they'll stay up for quite a while too. We'll see if they stay on the full time as we exit the structure. I think the steering weight here is just about right. You know, it's not Volvo light, but it's a good weight for people that just want to get in their car and go drive and get things done. You're not thinking about lugging this Outback around. Auto up-down windows on all four corners here. Window motors are pretty quiet.
Or scan your monthly card.
And I did have my lights on earlier because it was super foggy, but I think we're going to switch these back to auto because it is just now very normal looking outside. Anyway, though, pulling out into the city, let's get out of here. It is just so busy down here today. But we'll talk about like initial inputs and things on this as far as city driving goes. So on initial tip-in, sometimes throttle response is a little bit jumpy, but I found myself being very delicate with this week, and I haven't been like jostling myself. Like, it's been pretty much okay. Brakes feel pretty good too. And obviously the transmission is just nothing because it's a CVT, so we can't really talk about gear changes or anything like that. The only good thing about the CVT is it does keep this revved pretty low. Now, that doesn't mean that the Subaru Outback has been efficient because it's only been doing 17.3 mpg this week, but the Topher and I have both been filming this. We've been driving it in a mildly spirited way for some of our videos, of course. And if you're driving this like a normal person, it should do high 20s on the highway, low 20s in the city, and like mid 20s combined. So, not a great representation of what this car can actually do, but goes to show that some of these modern cars that aren't hybridized and kind of have these older powertrains, this FA24, just not really the most efficient thing in the world. Unfortunately, we can't do the rough ride test today because that section of Ann Arbor is shut for some reason. I think there may be a bit of graduation going on today because there are just so many people everywhere. Biggest compliment I can give this FA24 is just how quiet it is. And this is not even unique to the Outback. You know, I say this when I'm driving a WRX too, is that this is just a remarkably quiet engine. I mean, even under half throttle, they've got this dialed in pretty well in harmony with the CVT, where you don't really hear much of what's going on, especially when you're listening to music, just driving this on your normal day-to-day commute. I mean, you really don't notice this engine even exists. Do I like a CVT? No, I don't, but Subaru has gotten theirs pretty well dialed in. Not to say that either of these things are going to be incredibly reliable, you know, over the long run. Subaru engines usually do their best job of lasting, I don't know, 150,000 miles or so before they need a rebuild. I can't speak to the CVT because I'm just not sure. But man, it just makes me wish that Subaru would go back to a traditional torque converter automatic. That would be so cool to see in their cars because, in a way, Subaru is a bit of an enthusiast brand these days because of some of the specialty cars that they build. Think BRZ, WRX, even this Outback, them making something that looks like this. It's a bit of a lifted wagon sort of thing. All of the wilderness vehicles that they make. I mean, they make some really cool stuff. And I feel like a lot of it is let down by these stupid CVTs that they put in everything. I mean, even the automatic WRX has a CVT. So I just think Subaru as a company has so much more potential. Anyway, though, a bit more of a rough ride here section. Validating that this is still nice and cozy with our 55 section sidewall. I was honestly kind of surprised to see it. I don't think this person knows what's happening. I was surprised to see a 19-inch wheel on this, but you've got the 55 section sidewall. Subaru's usually pretty stuck on even keeping their top trims rugged. Interior build quality seems decent. There are a couple little shakes and rattles in here, which you you guys will hear. They're very subtle. They actually might not even come through on the mics. You can hear just a couple little things that maybe sound a little bit loose. I think the biggest disappointment in here are just some of the materials. The headliner, some of the hard plastics like on the side of the console here. I mean, if I'm paying near as makes no difference $50,000 for this car, it's a little bit hard to justify. I mean, I know that they put a little bit of leather on the dash and the door panels. You got the nice Nappa leather seat. You got the heated steering wheel, which is heated all the way around, which is nice. Heated ventilated seats. That's all nice to see, but I feel like there's sometimes a misconception with like other things that we expect. But I will say this. I'd rather Subaru cut costs and give me a crappy headliner and some plastic here and there than give me a screen that controls everything. Like, I would rather have this. I would trade this for some of the crappy materials. You hear some of those vibrations in this, you know? It's like... This car's only got 4,700 miles on it. It's pretty fresh. I don't think it's pre-production. I'm pretty sure this is a full production-ready car. Yeah, it's just kind of some creaks in here. I'd be trading paint with a Jeep Patriot. As far over as we can get, getting a warning. I guess that's just a blind spot warning there. No drive modes apart from X mode. X mode cancels itself around 25 miles an hour. That is really only for low-speed off-roading. But there's no sport mode anymore. It used to have the little sport sharp thing and then the intelligent. Now you're only in intelligent mode. And that's it. Unless they moved the drive modes, but you'd think that they wouldn't take away from the steering wheel. So I think that there just aren't drive modes, but that's really not a big deal in this car. I mean, a 4,000-pound wagon with 260 horsepower and a CVT, I don't need drive modes. Just let me just drive the car. Something, though, that is cool and new, this digital gauge cluster. You can cycle through all sorts of different views on this. You can have your Apple CarPlay navigation here on the screen. So I'm running Waze now on both the infotainment and the cluster. I'd like to see that. We have our driver assist screen. You can have a calm screen, or you can have the couple of gauges, which is what I've been driving on because I like to have anything close to what looks like just a regular gauge cluster in my car if I'm able to do so. Also got two memory seat settings, which are physical buttons here on the door panel. I don't think there's anything in this car that I wish was a physical button. Like they haven't forgotten anything in this. It's all here. Even the traction control off is a button. But we'll get this pulled into the grocery store parking lot. We'll try and find ourselves a spot in here to fit Big Bertha. I've been trying to think of what this actually looks like. Part of me wants to say Ford Flex because I feel like it kind of does. But Ford Flex might be a little bit too dramatically boxy to compare to this. Yes, all right, let's back this in between these two cars and see what placing is like here in a parking lot. Really nice cameras. You can get yourself set up really nice here. Go into a parking spot. This will fit in here, no problem. Nice, okay. Well, we'll see how that is when we're actually loading stuff into the car, but it looks like spacing on both sides is pretty good. I always love when you get out of a Subaru, it always says, "See you later." But I've got enough to open my door 2 clicks, barely. You can see kind of close to this van here, but we were watching. Looking appropriate here, not overly large. Should be all good. All right, well, I'm going to run in and grab some groceries, and we will be back out to wrap this one up and take it on the highway. Walking back up to the Outback today with my hands completely full with 2 very heavy bags of groceries. I'm curious to see if someone that's done no research to see where the little kick thing is in the back can actually get the trunk open, and if this actually even has one. I don't know. Getting close to giving up. Okay, So we don't have rear proxy key on this, which is a bit unfortunate, but we should be able to just hit this button here in the back with our key in our pocket and it will open. Okay, we can set all of this up here now, all this very heavy stuff. So this can do many things. They give you instructions. It can be a step cover, a partition, a hammock for things if you have stuff that's lighter than these big groceries, or a tonneau cover, obviously, to cover your stuff back here and make it private. Now we also can unhook this and just sort of move it out of the way if we want. And then that will show you our bag hangers right here, which are definitely too low, but I wonder if I can stick these on here, on these little hooks, and get them to stay. These are very heavy bags, so I'm a little bit concerned, but I think that might work. And hey, look at this. We could even give them a little bit extra support and just cover them up completely. Because why not? There you go. And it's like they're not even there. Okay, we'll see how those do for the rest of the trip. But obviously, this has proxy key on the front doors, so you can walk up and this will unlock with no problem. Ingress and egress, pretty good, and it does get a point above the Crown Signia for that, because that has a very sort of low roof line in the front, and you do sometimes hit your head just below the A-pillar. This is easier to get in and out of, you know. I do love the little intro that gives. All right, let's queue up a sound system test. I wish we could listen to Khalid, but we can't. So we'll put our sound system test song on. Using our almost 9 inches of ground clearance there to exit the parking lot. But, you know, the sound system in here, I think it's pretty good. I think it's kind of on the upper end of just okay. It's pretty bass heavy. It sounds kind of American in that way, like something you'd hear in a Ford, a GM, or a Stellantis product, but it does okay. You know, these Harman Kardon systems, they have gotten better from Subaru, and I'm happy to just have some punch from my bass and enough volume in here to cover up some of the road noise. But you could see they're going through that parking lot, using the ground clearance, all that stuff. I mean, this car is easily maneuverable. It's easy to drive. Anyone could get in this, and not only could they easily drive it, but they'd be able to just work stuff. You know, Meemaw could get in here and she could adjust the climate control with no problem. Oh my goodness, that truck's tailgate just fell off. Alrighty, well, it's about that time. Let's get the Subaru Outback merged onto the expressway here. Listening to all of our groceries rattle around in the back, but hopefully those don't affect our NVH too much. We've got the ventilated seat going too. But actually merging in this, you know, you can kind of get into this throttle, and the Subaru CVT, it always just feels like a rubber band, probably because it is one. But you really don't feel the power and torque until you're like over 3,000 RPM, and then it feels like it sets in. There does feel like a bit of self-preservation as far as acceleration goes here in this Outback XT. That was flat out there. And you can hear on the highway, it's kind of loud. Seems like maybe a bit of an improvement from older Outback and other Subaru products. It's definitely quieter than the Forester that we had a couple of months ago. But nevertheless, I think for 50K, I would want this to be a bit quieter in really all scenarios, to be honest. But as far as comfort goes, sitting in this, pretty good. Your elbow surfaces are both squishy door panel and center console. Driving position is nice. I've got the seat in its lowest position here. but I can still see over the hood. I can still see out the back. Obviously the camera mirror helps, but even without it, visibility is completely fine out of this. Set your elbows at even heights here, rest your hands on the steering wheel, and you can see just fine out the front too. So no complaints there. I think they've got that designed just about perfectly. I should have put those grocery bags somewhere else. I can never take this with any gusto. We had a little room to ourselves today. These tires do get loud. They do kind of complain when you're on the ragged edge. This CVT has an 8-speed manual mode. Listen to that V8 Tundra. That sounds good. So, if you want to pretend that you have a gearbox in this car, you can. Paddles feel pretty nice on the steering wheel. They just kind of change the pitch of the engine. Don't really do anything else. Well, we should talk about driver aids because that is a pretty big deal with Subarus. They have their eyesight that they're very proud of and market a lot, some of which I have turned off. The actual eyesight is right here, but if you have it turned on and have the POV camera on your face, sometimes it freaks it out, so usually we like to have that turned off. But despite that, we are still able to show you most of the driver aids that we have here in this car, all of which are very easy to use. Cruise control, super easy to toggle on. We are braking right off the bat. The system would have done that, but my instinct was to brake. So let's go ahead and reset this. This will default your steering assist on. You can turn that off if you want, but we'll leave it on today for the spirit of the video. And then your adaptive cruise settings are all here. You can adjust your distance up or down. This is the closest following distance you can see between me and this truck here. So still gives you plenty of distance on the first setting. I don't think this has lane change assist. Let me see if it does. Oh, it does. Holy crap, it does have lane change assist. Okay. Eating my words. Actually a pretty good system. Obviously it wants you to keep your hands on the wheel, but you can see with our display here, it negotiates that lane change, and it doesn't cancel the input if you take your hands off the wheel halfway through. So pretty safe system there. I don't love the hard plastic here on the console. I am kind of resting my leg on it, and I wish it was padded or just not there, maybe redesigned slightly further in. But otherwise, driver's compartment on the left-hand side, you've got plenty of room for the left leg. Something weird in this car, they carpeted the inside of the door panels, and the one on that side already has a stain in it from someone spilling something in there. But thinking about all of the stuff that you put in the door pockets on a car, whether it be a drink or just, you know, your candy wrapper from when you're eating something on the go, like, you want to be able to clean that out. And with it being carpeted like this, very strange. But this is just a very relaxing car to drive. You know, you sit in this, it's got a very comfortable seat, it's got a very cozy ride quality, and it just kind of gives you the impression that it's an old school, just big, cozy car. There's nothing sharp about this, and that's good. I don't want my Subaru Outback to be sharp. I want this to be a big, comfortable barge that just bulldozes everything, and that's exactly what this is. And in that sense, I really like it. But then I'm caught up in my like philosophical wagon enthusiasm and thinking that this doesn't really drive like a wagon. You know, I've spent some time in wagons over the last couple of weeks. I spent a week in the Volvo V60 cross country and a week in the Mercedes-Benz E53 AMG. Neither of which drove anything like this. You know, wagons, they drive a bit more like cars, but they have added practicality. This, at this point in its 7th generation, it just drives like an SUV. I mean, this doesn't drive that differently from a Forester or an Ascent. It's kind of just the mid-size SUV choice at this point. And while I like the way it looks, I think that they've done this right with kind of the squared off boxy nature. They've tried to keep some of that wagon spirit alive. I don't think it feels like a wagon anymore. Even if it's still classified as one, I don't really know that it gives me the wagon vibe. So do with that information what you will. I mean, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is still a very well usable and functional car. I just don't know that it's a wagon anymore. in 2026. So anyway, though, let's see what it is around a little bit of a performance section here. We'll put all 277 pound-feet of torque down. I mean, it's 260 horsepower at a 4,000 pound car, so it's quick enough, gets the job done, but it doesn't blow you away. But we'll show you that. Just want to give you some volume impressions here of full throttle. Show you how quiet this engine is. You know, the one thing I miss, and I meant to talk about this when we were under the hood, I miss the hood scoop. I wish the XT cars still got a hood scoop, because it's got the top mount intercooler, and it actually has quite a clever air intake system up there with the front of the hood, all the scoops underneath and stuff to feed air to that top mount. But man, how cool would it be if they just put a hood scoop back on these cars? Like the old Forester XT and the old turbocharged Outbacks and the current WRX. I think that would be sweet. Spice it up a bit more. You do get a bit of a punch once that turbo spools up, or once the CVT decides that it can provide full power, but it does push you in the back a little bit. All right, let's take this around a corner and try not to destroy our groceries in the back. No sense in really turning anything off, and there's no drive mode, so we'll just hit this in normal with traction on. Let's turn our ventilated seat all the way off, and we'll get this thing off the line. I'm going to turn auto stop start off. Not going to brake torque it because it's a CVT, so we'll just roll into it. You can see 60 there, and what my butt dyno tells me is about 6.5 seconds. You get a little bit of that, okay, you get a little bit of that initial kind of pause from the CVT because it can't really hit hard and launch, so it's a very gradual takeoff even when you pin the throttle. So then, that is just about going to wrap it up for us today in our little living with the new 2026 Subaru Outback Touring XT, a car that I quite like, but I don't really think it feels like a wagon anymore. But overall, it's still a good daily driver. It copes very well with our pimply, potholed Michigan roads, and still feels like a Subaru. Looks pretty cool for the new model year, but I think most importantly, we got a lot of these physical controls back, and the infotainment actually works now. So pretty big fan of this, to be honest. I just wish it had a real transmission and a hood scoop, but otherwise, pretty happy with this car. So let's give you one last look at the exterior. I hope you guys all enjoyed hanging out with me today on this little living with the Subaru Outback. Love this green color. We actually got some decent colors on this. Go on the configurator, build one, see what you can come up with, but I honestly think I'd probably spec mine like this. Not a huge fan of how the wheels look. Maybe if they were one solid color, they'd be better, but anyway, that's going to do it. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know, but otherwise, we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care.